narrating the intricacies of politics, diplomacy, war, and disasters. Join us as we make sense of it all, with in-depth coverage and analysis from across the globe. The World Today, every weekday at 5:30 p.m.
Hello and welcome to the nation's flagship political program, Sunday Politics. I'm Kayode Okikelu here in Lagos. Well, it's been 13 days now since INEC summoned the suspended Adamawa resident electoral commissioner, Mr. Hudu Yunusa Ari, after he made what's been described as an illegal announcement of results for the Adamawa supplementary governorship election. Well, the police has said it will leave no stone unturned in unraveling the remote causes, those are the words of the police, of the unwholesome conduct of the wreck, as well as ensure that all persons fingered in the cause of investigations are brought to book. So 13 days and counting. It is yet to be seen what the outcome of that investigation is, whether or not he's in custody, who else was involved in that process. And the big question we keep asking is, where is Mr. Hudu Yunusa Ari? We continue to wait and look to the authorities, the police, INEC, and others concerned to give Nigerians an answer to that question. The date of the illegal announcement was April the 16th, 2023. INEC summoned him on April the 17th, so 13 days now and counting. Well, we'll continue to do that for our democracy. But what a week it's been, really. First, for the Nigerians who were caught up in the Sudan crisis and the government's evacuation arrangements, the back and forth, the students putting out a video that they were stranded, all of that. Then the return of the president-elect Bola Tinubu after a month-long absence from the country. And of course, the attendant visits by politicians, traditional rulers, and even businessmen. So that was a state of some of the Nigerians who wanted to be evacuated from Sudan at some point in time this week. And I should say that as at this moment, none of them have been evacuated to Nigeria. Also, one of the highlights during the week, aside the humanitarian situation playing out in Sudan, which has spilled over to Egypt, and of course we're expecting them to arrive in the coming hours. One of the highlights of the week was a visit by two out of the G5 PDP governors, which some are now referring to as a G2. I'm talking about what played out at the Defense House. That's Governors Nyesom Wike of Rivers and Seyi Makinde of Oyo State. So, as some have called that, the G2 of the G5 visiting the president-elect. And it's clear now, all of the inter-party alignments, the romance between the president-elect and those governors. What does it all mean? That was something a lot of people had to wrap their heads around. And of course, the permutations of who emerges Senate President, Speaker, and of course, other key roles in government. Oh, by the way, the president-elect Senator Bola Tinubu today arrived in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital, the state he governed for 8 years. Not to worry, we'll get to that on the program. But let's begin tonight with one of the major responsibilities of government, which is the welfare of its citizens. For several days now, the Nigerian government has been trying to bring back home thousands of Nigerians from Sudan. Tuesday, April the 25th, was to be the date for evacuation, having secured a ceasefire from both sides. But it's been 5 days since then, and the students and other Nigerians as well are yet to arrive home. So what exactly is going on? There's been a lot of questions in that area. We've heard from the students about how they were stopped in the middle of the road, how they were trapped at the Egyptian border, and other troubling accounts. And there have been questions, cogent questions, by the way, about the whereabouts of Nigeria's ambassador to Sudan. And the other big question, just how that $1.2 million was spent, the money said to be earmarked for that evacuation. Let's tell you this. Earlier today, we received this voice note from the ambassador. Take a listen.
I just want to let you know that the embassy is not in charge of the bus contracts. We have not received any money from anybody to hire buses. We are only arranging the logistics. Those who are arranging the buses are the Ministry of Humanitarian as well in Nigeria, as well as NEMA. So our own is to get the necessary instruction that this and this has been arranged, and that we should give instruction to the students to meet at so and so place. And that's, you are aware, we have been doing. The present arrangement that appeared to have broken down was also midwifed in Nigeria. We are in contact with them to correct whatever is not right with the contract, because students cannot continue to live on the street. I want to assure you that we are as vulnerable as you are, and we are not going to leave until all of you have been moved to safety and to Nigeria. So I am urging you not to take any action like I am hearing that you are planning to attack the family of officers. The officers and myself, we are all as vulnerable as you are. We have no food like you, we have no water like you, we have no light like you.
So that was the ambassador essentially, washing his hands clean of the funds, the $1.2 million, and those other issues, saying, well, they were just meant to contract, that's all. So much later, the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development came out to say how that $1.2 million was spent. The Ministry's Permanent Secretary, Mr. Nasiru Zanigwarzo, during an interaction with journalists in Abuja, in fact, said that more money is required for the proper evacuation of these Nigerians. So take a listen.
Do you know how much it takes to hire a bus from Khartoum to the border?
About 1,000 kilometers.
$30,000 per bus. $30,000 per bus times 40 buses. Can somebody, any good mathematician amongst you?
1.2 million.
That is not billion.
Million. Yes.
That is where your 1.2 million comes into. We now mobilized the first tranche approved by federal government out of this, which is $400,000, and transferred it. If you take out $400,000, what does it come to?
800,000.
No, 1/3
Yes.
of the total.
1/3, yes.
Once they gave us 13 buses, 13 buses times $30,000 is how much? 390. 30. Can somebody calculate for me?
That's 390 is correct, sir.
390. They stopped giving us. You remember I told you they gave us 13,000. They're supposed to give us 13 point something buses. They kept the 10,000. When you are traveling in Sudan, you don't enter a bus and start going. You must load it with water and biscuits. Yes. Believe me, I just became an expert on Sudan overnight because every day we discuss with them. And they told us our money is finished, bring another money.
So that's the account, $30,000 per bus, and the calculation was being done even with the reporters there, crunching the calculators. So that's from the ministry right there as to how the money is being spent, and the call for more that was made by the permanent secretary. But Nigeria is not the only country involved in the evacuation of its citizens. So let's perhaps show you how some of the other countries how far they have gone in trying to evacuate their nationals since violence broke out in Sudan. Well, we know that as at the last time we checked, Nigeria has not been able to bring anybody into the country. The evacuation is on. I mean, they've hopped on the buses, gotten to Egypt. They've been able to get across, but we're waiting for them to be airlifted. Or perhaps that has been done already, but they've not arrived in the country. So the means of transportation for Nigeria is by land and, of course, subsequently by air. But the United Kingdom has been able to evacuate almost 2,000 of its citizens with 21 flights, essentially by air. Those have been conducted so far. For Germany and France, a total of 1,700 of their citizens have been taken back home from Sudan. You see the figures across other countries. Saudi Arabia, 3,000. They had to do this by sea, using boat. You see how countries have been, been quite creative trying to work around the situation. Uganda, 200. Palestine, 200 as well. We understand that there are thousands of Nigerians in Sudan, and the United States, of course, 300, had to go through land, sea, and air. The country has a total of 16,000 nationals in Sudan. And you see those figures right there for Turkey, Egypt, 1,000 to 436. Egypt by road, by the way. Then you just see a breakdown of how these countries are faring in evacuating their citizens back home. So we keep waiting. We have our correspondents across board just waiting at the airports. And as soon as that first batch lands, we'll give you the breaking news right here on Channels Television. But let's get into our first conversation tonight. And it is a reality check for the outgoing government on the one hand and the incoming government on the other. So while all of those meetings, permutations are going on, let's bring to bear the reality of Nigeria today and what the government has to do, the kind of work the government has cut out for itself. A few weeks from now, President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to hand over government. But what exactly is he handing over? Let's take a look at some of them. If we could take a peek into President Buhari's handover note, you'll see that, well, the next government will be in charge of subsidy removal or otherwise. He has also, of course, ceded that responsibility of conducting a national census to the incoming government. But that's not all. Let's show you some of the figures, President Buhari's handover figures. And we begin with unemployment. Take a look at that, 33.3%. But the projection recently by KPMG is that it would reach 41%. So that's for unemployment. But poverty rate is also another thing that the president is handing over to the incoming president, 63% poverty rate. That's the multidimensional poverty figures released by the MBS in partnership with other bodies. That's 133 million Nigerians. So that will also be in the handover note, I imagine. What about minimum wage? Well, 30,000 naira. There's been a lot of conversation around whether or not it should be increased and all of that, especially when you convert that into dollars. And that takes me to the next point, the foreign exchange rate. Nigerian naira to the dollar, unofficial rate, or the rate majority of people have access to, is 737 naira. But the official rate, of course, the CBN's exporting rate is 461 naira to a dollar. So when you crunch the minimum wage, divide that by 737, you know what that is. Another figure that this outgoing government will be handing over to the next government, if you were to do that today, will be the inflation rate of 22%. That's double digits, 22%. And the debt, of course, 69 trillion naira. Well, some will say 77 trillion naira, but when you remove the borrowings from states and the FCT, it comes to about that figure. We've put the ways and means, the borrowings for the budget and all of that. So it comes across to that figure. Oh, not forgetting economic growth, the GDP growth for 2022 was 3.1%. And experts have said we need to put this at double digits. But Nigerians get the point. These are the figures that the outgoing government will be handing over to the incoming government. So a lot of these figures aren't looking good. So while they may be smiling in those pictures, the photo ops, those figures aren't smiling. So what should the next government do? Well, let's have this conversation this evening with Oluseun Onibide, who is Director of Budget, also Director of Civic Hive. He joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Mr. Onibide, it's good to have you.
It's a pleasure being here, Coyote.
You know, when we have these figures and we're trying to wrap our heads around it, we always come to you, the experts, to help us understand. And it's always said that there's always a story behind the figures. We see the figures, inflation, but there's a whole lot of story behind it. So for you, you're not a stranger to these figures. You've been following the trends from as long as a lot of people can remember. What do you see when you see those figures that this outgoing government is handing over to the incoming government?
Yeah, thanks so much. I think the first background to these figures is that in the last 8 years, we had 2 recessions. Growth has not been great. And recently, we've had this jump off, to around 3%. It's like you're in a hole and you get up. So it looks like you're growing, but it's not as if we've made significant leaps. And also because of that, there's been significant revenue shortage. This current government has not applied any level of fiscal consolidation or rationing when it comes to expenditure. It has spent as if it had all the money to do, and the way out for that was to borrow a lot of money. I mean, we're taking our domestic debt from around $10 billion to around $41 billion. We've taken our domestic, that's our foreign debt. We've taken our domestic debt from around 8 trillion naira to around 21 trillion. And we have another 24 trillion naira sitting, which I'm sure is around 26 trillion naira now with the CBN. That the federal government still has to pay back, and that's not started with the securitization. So we've had a situation where we've not been able to apply some level of fiscal consolidation to trim the public expenditure. There's been big spending on infrastructure, but I don't think the expense on infrastructure matches the size of funds that have been borrowed or funds that have been spent so far. The challenge is that, and we still also have subsidies still being there.
Oh, yeah.
The government has not been bold enough to remove subsidy and just pushed it to the late hour, and possibly would be the migraine of the next government in some way. I feel like on the economy for this government, it's failed woefully. And I say this because if you look at significant decisions that should have been made, we looked at exchange rate, we lost significant value. I mean, we got in there with 216. We have to be realistic. We're around 740 is the rate. The CBN can't even give everybody, not even 10% of demand at 416. We still have funds not paid to airline operators. I mean, still hold airline operators. They can't evacuate their funds. And you have inflation. And it's not the luckiest government, let's be honest with ourselves, because you had oil prices went down, production shut down. But there were so many things that could have been done, in terms of rationalizing expenditure that were not done. There were things that could have been done in terms of contracting efficiency that were not done. There were things that could have been done in terms of even reworking the entire tax architecture of the country. I mean, that were not attempted. So
even with the finance bills that we've seen, you don't think there was enough work done in that area?
We still have a situation where you look at the tax waivers, the size of tax waivers that we still have. It's in trillions of naira.
That's too huge.
That's too huge for a country that is significantly looking for revenue. We even had situations where we look at tax architecture. And my tax architecture is not just about putting the rates out and there. To look at payee system, we should select payee system. To look at VAT, how should we collect VAT and sales tax? To look at corporate income tax, is that the right rate that we should have? We should have been able to look back and rearrange the old debt. Not just for us adding rates and putting exemptions and putting in items in and out. And by the time you also look at that, and I think that's what the next government has to do. The next government has to focus on macroeconomic growth. Macroeconomy has to matter. The sad part of this current government is that because it found a way from the CBN to meet its obligations.
Is that the ways and means?
The ways and means thing. It neglected the fundamental macroeconomic principles. Because that was a strange situation. In the previous government, there was no 24 trillion naira taken from the CBN. But because of that, and that's why you see inflation galloping, putting so much money in the environment, the economy, that is not backed by assets. So you have those money still chasing the dollar. And at the end of the day, you're still going to put pressure on the foreign exchange.
I need to come in here, because you talked about the macroeconomic angle. A lot of people have said, well, what option did this government have anyway? It wanted to meet its obligations, wanted to fund a budget, and it had to do that. So maybe that was a rationale behind that. So for you, did you see alternatives that this government would have explored? You talked about, cutting the cost of governance. You referenced that. Will that have been enough to make up for what, the 26 trillion naira? Well, by the way, the government didn't take all of it. It says that some of it was taken by the previous government, maybe a little part of it, but at least for that amount, do you think it will have made up for it?
I feel so. Number one, I think there's this anti-investor sentiment that this government pushed forward early on. And I think they had to walk that back. If you want to have macroeconomic stability for a low-income economy like us or a middle-income economy, you need to find means to attract FDI. One of the biggest disasters. I mean, you look at FDI, we're barely scraping $2 billion annually. And so if you're not positioning yourself and you're not marketing yourself as an investor haven, then that's a big problem. I think that's where we significantly missed it. We took $13 billion in Eurobonds, around in this current cycle of the government. And we didn't use that to even invest in maybe an NLNG train. We didn't use that to say we're significantly fixing our power problems. We just took dollars when we could find dollars. And that's even the bigger rationale to us saying we're going looking for $800 million. There has to be some tactical approach in how we are doing things. If we cannot defend the currency at $400, then we 400 naira or 461, then we know that we have to defend at 700. But we could have opened up the space to be more effective for foreign investors to come in. I think that's the next thing the next government has to do. They need to focus on price stability, focus much more on being ready to attract foreign investment. Because without that, we would continue to seek means to find dollars to borrow, to do reserve management, and it will never just be enough.
The government time and again, and you said that this government has not been the luckiest with the recessions, the COVID-19, the oil prices, and all of that. But the government has found a way to say, well, it's still trying to do well in spite of all of the circumstances. So speak to us about the team, because this incoming government is also trying to put together a team. And for this outgoing government, it's had a team from the cabinet. In fact, there's also been the National Economic Council, which gave the advice on subsidy removal and all of that. So it had a team at different levels. And you said that this government failed woefully. So is it a problem of the team that this government had? Is it the political will, as they always say, which, by the way, is quite vague? A lot of people don't know what it means, but they always say lack of political will. Or was it external factors? If you could pinpoint it, what was the major challenge?
First, I think the erosion of the CBN independence was a big problem. When you want to take money, the laws that said CBN could give a certain % of its previous year revenue as ways and means, those laws were there for purposes. And it was to make sure that the federal government was able to sweat enough before it finds the CBN as a last lender of resort. The feeling didn't look as if the federal government needed to sweat. It just made the CBN its piggyback, And because of that, even if you want to take loans from IMF, let's assume that's last lender of resort. IMF comes with conditionalities to say, do this, do that. The independence of the CBN, where they could have said, the federal government, yeah, we know that COVID is in space. We know that there have been significant drop in oil prices, but we need certain reforms before we continue to back you. And these are the kind of things that you expect that would make the federal government to look inwards and say, okay, I'm going to take on this reform, I'm going to take on those things. But if it means like, can you jump? And the question is, how far can I jump? Then you're not going. So the first thing that the current next government has to do is, and in terms of the team construction, is how do you preserve the independence of the CBN? Because the CBN exists for two purposes, should actually. Full employment and monetary price stability. Yeah. Now, if the CBN continues to put money in the economy in an haphazard manner, you cannot guarantee price stability in that environment. And that's why you see us, and we have not even removed subsidy, we're already jumping around 20 to 22% inflation rate. So by the time you take out subsidy and sentiments get it can even be far higher than that. So I feel first thing you have to do is look at the CBN structure, because we have a situation where we left the fiscal tools that could be more effective, and we all just jumped into CBN solving almost every problem. And I think that's what I feel really didn't make the economy be effective. No, look at how much you've put in the economy. Look how much debt you put in the economy. Then if you're putting money, Keynesians, they will tell you if you're putting money into the economy, it's for you to be able to generate growth and to be able to take the economy to full employment. So if you're just putting a lot of money in an economy and unemployment numbers are still rising, and poverty index and the poverty numbers are still rising. So it tells you that something is not right. The macroeconomy, which is price stability, which is exchange rate stability, which is also even being able to, the credit flow within the economy, setting that standard to be proper first is what everybody now jumps on. But if you think you keep putting money into the economy in an opposite manner, in not a structured manner, you cannot generate the kind of impact you want.
You know, a lot of people have said that, I mean, the incoming government is an APC government as well. So some fear that, will this just be a continuation of what we have seen in the past 8 years? I mean, who knows what will happen to those figures that we reeled out, because they say that it's the same party anyway. It's still the same logo, perhaps even the same philosophy, even though there's a whole conversation about the philosophy of political parties in Nigeria and all of that. But for the incoming government, what should be its focus then if it will want to have a name or a performance different from this outgoing government? What should it focus on?
I think the first thing the government needs to focus on is what I call fiscal efficiency.
By the way, when I say focus on, I'm talking about the indices that we showed.
Yeah.
Those indices, unemployment, the poverty rates, the inflation. Which needle should they try to move first such that it can create way to tackle others?
If I say focus on the short term inflation.
Inflation.
Yeah, you need to find a way to stem, especially food inflation. Because if you remove subsidy, if people can still eat at a reasonable amount, then I mean that solves a big part of Nigerian problem.
There's that adage in my culture that once you take away hunger, you've taken away a huge chunk of a person's problem.
So you have to find a way. I mean, food inflation is higher than the regular, the CPI index. So you have to find a way to tackle food inflation.
Is there an easy way out?
There are no easy ways out. But you have to look at the entire value chain and see where exactly are the biggest points of waste, or where are the parts where the component of inflation is happening. Or you have to find a way to dip into your productivity, especially for those crops. Crop production is still around 22% of our GDP. So if there's any place you're going to tackle inflation, it's about crop production and also the entire value chain around it. That's where it is. Second thing I would say focus is non-oil growth, especially non-oil exports. We have to be an economy that exports things outside oil. We're doing well. I mean, the current government, you have to respect that they've taken it forward a bit, but it has to be far more. I mean, we can't be producing $4 billion of non-oil exports and we pat ourselves in the back. We need to quadruple that. We need to, as much as we can go. I mean, Brazil does soya beans export of around $30 billion to EU alone. So if we sit back and just feel that we're fine, we're not good enough. We need to build an economy that is non-oil driven, especially when it comes to export. So how we look at that number?
Talk to us about looking inwards. The cost of governance has been a major issue, and a lot of people think that he will continue his business as usual. In fact, some fear that he may even be higher. So in terms of looking inwards, cutting expenditure, and your words was rationing expenditure, you think that this government was not able to achieve that. So in terms of rationing expenditure, what are those direct or specific areas you want this next government to look at and say, well, we have to cut it lean here?
I think in the first thing, I feel like the current government, the next government should have fiscal efficiency. And I start with the culture of the government, because you can say, look into the budget, cut X, Y, Z. No, that's not where you start from. You start for the kind of culture. If it's a culture of like everybody's welcome, there's money on the table, take whatever you have to take your own share, then that becomes like you can't even, to spin out of control. So the culture of fiscal efficiency has to be the first thing the government has to look for. Hey, we are broke. We don't have enough money. So we are trying as much as possible to squeeze water from a stone. But if it feels like, oh, there's always the CBN, there's always the capital market, there's always the bond market, there's going to be somehow be more money from more revenue, we'll be able to sell 1 or 2 or 3 assets, we're always going to have money, then there's always going to be a problem. The second thing is that the federal government also needs to streamline its capital projects. Too many projects that the federal government does. And I think that's where you have to start from. You have a school of fisheries delivering solar lighting systems. You have a college of education building schools in another city. No, it's just like a contract bazaar. The idea of lawmakers inserting items indiscriminately in the budget is something that And it was so unfortunate that with the whole discipline toga of the president, he was not able to tackle that. But something that new government has to do, let agencies with the mandate to deliver projects do them. Not just National Assemblymen just talking in projects anywhere they like. There was a lot of inefficiency in that space.
We need to go to break now. And when you talk about toga, I wonder what kind of toga you see this incoming administration coming with. But we'll go to break now, and we'll take your final words in a moment. Plus, when we return, I mean, all of those meetings that have been happening at the president-elect's place, it is a talk about shaping the incoming government that is at the heart of it. And when we return, Honorable Bello Kumo, who is the chairman House Committee on Police and a 3-time member, is our guest. He has an idea of the inside workings, and he'll be joining us after the break. Stay with us.
Experience the opulence and security of Swiss Traders. With over 30 years experience, exclusive with a touch of history and craftsmanship, Swiss Traders are made from the finest ancient aga and ivory wood. A range of exclusive armored doors, elegant interior doors, carefully crafted by world-renowned architects and engineers. At Swiss Trade, a door is much more, plus premium quality onyx stones and luxury interiors. Visit Swiss Trade today or call now. Swiss Trade, blend of beauty and security.
Homes, building cities, communities, and homes.
The Duchess International Hospital opened its doors in October 2021. The mission of the hospital is to reverse medical tourism. We take particular care here at the Duchess to bring together a combination of the brightest and the best locally, as well as Nigerians in the diaspora who are interested in returning to do very good work for the benefit of our patients here in this country.
The good thing is that we have all international expertise here, all international facilities here, international people working here. Everything is coming together in a space which was considered not great in terms of the availability of healthcare.
Access Bank, of course, has been able to provide us with a robust range of products and services that has enabled us to deliver that standard and quality of healthcare that is integral to our mission as an organization.
Experience the opulence and security of Swiss Traders. With over 30 years experience, exclusive with a touch of history and craftsmanship, Swiss Traders are made from the finest ancient aga and ivory wood. A range of exclusive armored doors, elegant interior doors, carefully crafted by world-renowned architects and engineers. At Swiss Trade, a door is much more, plus premium quality onyx stones and luxury interiors. Visit Swiss Trade today or call now. Swiss Trade, blend of beauty and security.
Back, our closing moments with Mr. Oluseun Onibide, who is Director of Budgets, so Director Civic Hive. And you were talking about the toga of this outgoing administration. There was that talk about discipline when the president was coming in. And I wonder, for this incoming administration, from the antecedents, the pedigree, what kind of toga do you see this government coming in with, economically, even generally speaking? How do you think the emergence will hit home? For a lot of people, President Buhari, it was discipline, as you said. Some people said for the first few days, there was constant electricity up until a few days after. So for this incoming government, what do you see the toga being?
I mean, it's left to be seen. I think you can see this is a comment coming from Lagos. Now, I was in Abuja a few days ago, and everybody's saying the Lagos people are coming, and they are vibrant people. I think there's a feeling of a pro-growth government, you know, if it comes on board, that they would focus on taking on big ideas that can turbocharge the economy. I think there's a feeling around that. I see that. Maybe there's also a feeling that there will be a lot of money on the table. I don't know how the reality of that. But there's also a feeling that there was so much money flowing around the system, but that's left for the money to be efficiently spent. Lagos has done some things right, especially when you look at the Lekki corridor, the Lekki-Ekpe corridor with the free trade zone and what has happened there in recent times. So I feel most times people will be thinking about these are people who would put private sector ideas forward. Because you can be in the same party, yes, I agree, but your orientation and your awareness of issues are different.
But what about taxation? Questions of taxation, people are wondering. All become of taxation.
We have to
Would we have to pay more? Would they pay less?
It's something that has to happen. We have to be a country that is run on social contract. But at the end of the day, it also means that taxation comes with representation, it comes with questioning and accountability. It also
and you think this incoming government has that pedigree of accountability?
I don't think they've done well with that when they were in Lagos. But there's something that this is at the federal level. And if you want to drive taxation significantly, and let's not lie to ourselves, the economy has to be productive before you tax it. And we have to ask ourselves, if you're in Lagos, Lagos is the biggest site, is the biggest component of Nigeria's economy. So if you're going to export that idea to every part, it may not be that easy. But definitely there will be big questions and there will be big demands on the fact that non-oil revenue part has to grow. And that means more taxation or more efficiency in terms of getting people to pay and properly pay.
Very interesting conversation we've had. Mr. Olusegun Onibide, Director Budget, thank you so much for your time on the program. Wish you the very best.
Thank you.
So let's switch gears now. The president-elect, which we've just spoken about, arrived in Lagos today. And it wouldn't be surprising to see his residence in the nation's commercial capital turn into a mecca of sorts, as we saw at the Defense House in the nation's capital, Abuja. So, I mean, that is his arrival in the nation's commercial capital, a state he has governed for 8 years, and of course been instrumental to the emergence of subsequent governors in the state. So what is at stake, really, with the meetings we saw last week and the possible meetings we'll be seeing in the coming days? In fact, there's said to be an incoming meeting or a planned meeting about how the positions would be zoned. So let's take a look at the key positions as they are today, or as they will be in the coming weeks when this outgoing government hands over to the incoming government. By the way, these are the leadership ambitions, the people who are gunning for the Senate president position, and then take a look at the House of Representatives position. Those are some of the aspirants, people who are gunning. But let's now see the balance of power as it is now. Let's take a look at the balance of power as it looks to be for the president-elect, the vice president-elect, and of course, other positions in the National Assembly. If we could just pull that up. We know that the president-elect is from the southwest region of the country. The vice president-elect is from the northeast region of the country. But it is still to be seen where the Senate president, the deputy Senate president, the speaker, and the deputy speaker will come from. And our guest tonight is someone who understands what's going on behind the scenes. All of those meetings you've seen, well, he should have an insight to that one. We're joined by Honorable Bello Kumar, who is of the APC, Gombe State, is a third-term member of the House of Representatives, Chairman House of Reps Committee on Police. Now, he's currently the Chairman of Joint Task of the 10th Assembly. Now, that's a coalition of APC, PDP, NNPP, Labour Party, APGA, the 10th Assembly members-elect, as well as, other positions he's held. Honorable, it's good to have you on the program. Good evening.
Thank you. Good to have me, Harry.
I'm curious, and I imagine for a lot of Nigerians, have you also been able to visit the president-elect? It looks like it is customary at this point for the who's in or who's who in the APC and even the PDP, as we've seen, to visit the president-elect.
Not yet, because I'm just coming back from my laser hatch from Accra.
But that's something you plan to do, of course.
Certainly do so.
I was asking if that's something you plan to do, Honorable.
Basically, thank you very much, Kairi. You see, I have listened carefully to the first segment of this program, and you link it up with the expectations of Nigerians in some weeks and to come. Let me quickly say that the constitutional responsibility of Parliament is to provide laws for the good governance of Nigeria as a community. It is in view of this that we, members of, indeed, 9th Assembly who are returning and some members elect for the 10th Assembly, we came up with this idea of joint tax as a coalition, which cut across the political parties. If you listen to the last guest, he talked about so many figures in the handover notes. There is no way you can achieve this as a government if you don't have a legislation. And in doing that, you need cooperation and partnership between the arms of government. So there is need to have a stable house and a stable National Assembly. How do you do that? You must cue into the best global practices, where you find out all over the world, the mainstream party, the majority party in a particular country produces the presiding officers. Nigeria cannot be an exception. And that's why we seek the cooperation and partnership of our sister political parties to form a coalition of responsible, seasoned, experienced members to come up with a group that will cue in and adopt anything that is suggested by the leadership of the mainstream APC party that is in government. We must ensure the incoming government of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu succeed. As Nigerians, we are not sent by our constituents to come and quarrel or fight with anybody. We are assembled to discuss Nigeria and discuss developmental programs and projects and policies of the government by way of partnership so that Nigeria can move forward from where we are. Having said this, I have seen you have displayed interested parties. It is their franchise to contest these positions. But there must be only one speaker and one deputy speaker, one Senate president and one deputy Senate president. They are all men of integrity. They are our friends. We knew them. We knew what they can do. But Section 14 of the Constitution have helped in sorting out some silent and key and fundamental issues. That is the issue of social justice. If you look at 14.1, it's talking about social justice. If you look at 14.3, it's talking about federal character. I am a pan-Nigerian, and all members of this coalition, joint tax, are pan-Nigerians. By coming in to National Assembly to represent your constituency, you are no longer a local player. You are a national player, and therefore you will look at issues subjectively and objectively. You have to look at Nigeria first, the unity of this country. You have to look at the rights and the privileges that can be accorded to other segments and other parts of the country, irrespective of religion, political party, gender, region, or what have you.
Right.
So therefore, the coalition called joint tax, we are not promoting any particular candidate, and we are not after or against any particular candidate. What we are after are very simple. One, the unity of Nigeria. Two, the stability of the National Assembly. Three, to ensure cooperation and partnership with other segments of government. And most fundamentally, to have a stable 10th Assembly. We have seen, as a litmus test, in 2 instances where in the first leg of Buhari administration, where you have Bukola Saraki and Ekwere Madu, it doesn't speak well about Zanzibar democracy in the world. You don't do such partnership, so we cannot go for a repeat of such.
Well, Honorable.
And we have not seen the Wase and Baja combination, that they are working in tandem with the executives. Members of the National Assembly can testify to you that in relation to budget implementation all over the country, you will give Buhari government a pass mark because budget implementation never go below 80, 85 to 90%.
All right, Honorable,
and
let me
that's what
come
we are
in
trying
here.
to achieve during government.
Let me come in here, if, pardon me,
Let me
Honorable.
finish, 1 second. 1 minute.
Just a moment, you land on that point.
We must ensure that Ashwaju succeed.
Right. I think it's a point you've made, essentially, that your goal is unity, stability, cooperation, and ensure that this incoming government succeeds. But, you know, this joint task which you talk about, what is the composition like? How much of members do you have? Because you said that you are not looking to zone, you're not supporting anybody, you just want what is best for the country. So what is the composition of this joint task? How much members-elect do you have?
As a coalition, we have a structure. We have chairman and we have co-chairman. The co-chairman is a product of PDP. And we have a secretary who is of NMPP extraction. And we have 6 zonal coordinators and co-zonal coordinators. We have a vice chairman north and vice chairman south. And we have 3 spokespersons. All of these are of different political extractions. This is to tell you that when we are in that great chamber, we are not expected to be discussing our political parties. We are expected to discuss Nigeria, Nigerian development, and the partnership and queuing in the global best practices. We cannot metamorphose to local and even discuss political party issues. Political party is a platform that we come to discuss Nigeria. And when we come to discuss what benefits, what promotes, what makes Nigeria become a key player in the global world, we will put other sentiments aside. So this is a coalition that come up with a combination of all players from different political parties, and that to show you that it's a pan-Nigerian project.
What I mean, Honorable, is of the 360 members of the House of Representatives, how many of them are part of this joint task?
What I will tell you for free is, as a politician, we have the substantial number to determine what will happen in that election. What's most fundamental is we are waiting for the body language of the major or the main party, the APC. Let the party APC zone this position, and you will see miracle. We have the strength, we have the numerical strength, we have credible people, we have people that have vast experience in legislation and in parliamentary activities. I can tell you for free that we are politicians. We cross the bridge where we reach the bridge. We have that number. We have the number that will change all the dynamics. But what is most fundamental, we must ensure Ashwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu government succeed as we are part of the government. The fact that you are a legislator or you are from the judiciary doesn't take you out of part of that government. We are discussing Nigeria, and our most fundamental interest is Nigeria developing, is making Nigeria great, and we must rally around every right-thinking person who is willing to put Nigeria forward. We are willing to partner with such a person.
Right.
That what we are saying to queue in with the APC as a party is because that is a global practice. All over the world, the mainstream party, the majority party produces the presiding officer. So we are not doing anything different. But as I said, we respect all the aspirants. They are our friends. We know them. We know their antics. We know their credentials. We know their pedigree. And they are men of integrity, but there must be only one speaker at a time. But what we are saying, what is non-negotiable is Nigeria, the unity of this country, the stability of this country, and in fact, the stability of the 10th Assembly.
All right. So you've said that you are waiting for the APC to release the zoning arrangement. Hopefully that will be in the coming days. But let's take a look at the balance of power yet again. So at least we get a sense of the thinking within your group. at least if we don't know the direction you're going, you can at least tell us the direction you will not go in. So we have a president-elect from the Southwest, a vice president-elect from the Northeast. Are you saying that even if the party zones the Senate presidency or the speakership to a region that is already represented as president-elect, vice president-elect, you are okay with it?
We respect the ideals of party politics, but there is presumption of regularity. This presumption of regularity is we are expecting the party to do the right thing. The party are conversant with the constitutional provisions of Section 14. The party are equally conversant with the diversity of Nigeria as a cosmopolitan nation. The party equally expect and respect the franchise right of each individual. We assume and we expect that, as I said, we presume regularity. We are expecting that the party will look at segments of this country that are not favored so that we will have an all-inclusive governance.
When you
once
say
the party do the right thing, we are going to key in and give the party the best of our cooperation and rally around other interested groups to ensure that we do what is right only to ensure a stable government, a stable Nigeria, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu government succeed, and we have a stable 10th assembly. There will be value-added government.
So speak to us. When you said that, I mean, you want this to go to segments or regions that are not favored. What are those regions that are not favored? Southeast, the South-South,
If you have
Central,
if you have the president coming from,
Northwest?
if you have the president coming from Southwest, and you have the vice president coming from Northeast, the other 4 zones are at liberty to take these positions so that you have this sense of belonging, because we are preaching an all-inclusive government. Any position can go to anywhere.
Right. So you said that if the party does the right thing, you would support. And I mean, I asked, what if the party chooses to go the way of regions that are already represented? And you said that you believe strongly that the party would. But what are you hearing? I mean, from those meetings, the body language of the president-elect and other leaders of your party, how confident are you that, I mean, those segments that are not represented well will be factored in, bearing in mind that some have said the votes you contributed to the success or to the election of the president-elect will also come to bear. And we've seen regions that didn't contribute as much. Take the Southeast, for example. So what becomes of the Southeast?
I'm not in position to say how the zoning will look like. But as I said, there is presumption of regularity, and you expect something good coming. You have to have these positive thoughts. You don't have to start thinking of faults. As I said, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a seasoned politician who have seen it all. He have rose through the radar of prosperity gradually and patiently. So also he have an erudite, very eloquent, very able, capable vice president coming from my zone. We are very optimistic that 2 major political players who are nationalists will do the right thing. And the chairman of the political parties, all of them, are well-respected Nigerians. That's why soon we'll start embarking on lobbying. Lobbying is accepted all over the world. All the parliaments in the world accept lobbying as part of their activities. So therefore, I am assuring you that once the party announces their zoning formula, God's willing, we are going to queue in and ensure that we do the right thing. The major responsibility of a political party, even in the parliament, is to defend the policies and programs of the government. And therefore, I'm telling you that I am very, very certain that they will try to do just and fair to all manner of people. This I expect, and this what I think is coming to play.
Well, you said that the joint task, as you put it, is a coalition of APC, PDP, NNPP, LP, APGA. And you say that all of the members in this coalition are waiting for the decision of the All Progressives Congress. So you're saying that you have the word, the agreement of members of the PDP, NNPP, Labour Party, ABGA. All of them say that they will go the way that the APC decides.
Yes, because they are seasoned parliamentarians. We were in the House with them. Most of them were in the House since 2011.
But a lot of them are new.
Integrity. They have
Honourable, a lot of these people are new. I mean, take the Labour Party representatives. Some of them, for example, are newbies. So you've not told us the numerical strength you have. Some might say you may just be bluffing. I mean, part of what politicians do, try to keep their cards to their chests and, you know, make it look like a lot is happening when nothing might be happening.
Let me tell you, Kaede, sometimes last week, the Secretary of the Coalition, Honorable Alima Daki, appeared before these channels on a program, and he reiterated his position as the Secretary, a member of the Coalition, and he is of AMPP extraction. Sometimes last 2 weeks, my co-chairman, Kingsley Chinda from Rivers, a seasoned, well-respected parliamentarian par excellence, he appeared on challenge programs, and he reasserted and reiterated his position as with his willingness and that of his political party members to cue in whatever is the formula came up with by the APC party as a majority party. So what are we talking about here? But in relation to numerical strengths, you see, as a politician, and I am a student of politics, I cross the bridge when I reach the bridge. I believe in getting results.
All right.
So I can tell you, take it from me, on my honor, that we have the numbers to turn around and give the result we want to have, God's willing. Whatever is the body language, whatever is the position of the party, APC, I am very optimistic that, God's willing, we are going to get that leadership.
Well, Honourable, I can only take what you give me. You've not given me the numbers, so I cannot take it from you. But we have to thank you so much, Honourable Bello Kuma of the APC Gombe State, three-time member now of the House of Representatives and Chairman House Committee on Police. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, that's been the program. The coming days will be very interesting. It is May Day tomorrow, and of course, we'll be back with another package for you. I'm Kayode Okikiolu. Good night.
Jackpot of the week. Place bets and hit the jackpot. Log into the OneXBet account. Click on the Take Part button. Place bet and take part in the jackpot draw. Feel like a winner with OneXBet. Use promo code to get a bonus on your first deposit.
Mommy, it is time for us to leave this place.
One of your earrings is missing.
No one will find it.
I'm not willing to take that chance.
Have a big plan, Mommy.
What do you want?
I want a senior position at Dubai.
If anything happens to me, go through the content of this envelope and check every single thing.
It's done. No one will ever find out the truth.
Stay connected to the world with Channels TV Podcast and get all the trending stories. Simply log on to channelstv.com, click on podcast, select the program of your choice, and listen. Our podcast is available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Tap the expertise you trust. Touch the stories that touch you. Anytime, anywhere.
harvesting corn or rice and using the leftovers to power light bulbs later. It is really possible. We're showing you how, along with other surprising possibilities from our environmental magazine. So welcome to a new issue of Eco Africa. I am Sandra Twinobio, right here in Kampala, Uganda.
Thanks, Sandra. There are really more amazing features on our show, so stay tuned. My name is Chris.